Folks, if there's one thing I've learned in my time riding motorcycles is that there's one universal truth, and that is supermotos are always the answer. And that behind me is the KTM 390 SMC R, the baby brother of the 690 SMC R. This shares the 390 platform with the Enduro and the Adventure, and now this is the third and final bike in that trio of bikes, the SMC R. SM is supermoto, obviously, and I think it's a hell of a bike for only $5,500. So, what makes this thing so much fun for such a little price tag? Come along, I'll tell you more about it in just a second. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the KTM SMC R. Gotta start with the engine, of course, that's where all things start. This is the 398.5cc. We're just gonna round up and call it a 400cc single cylinder that KTM introduced in 2024. Oh look, it even says right there how big the engine is. So there you go. Pretty potent package. I used to be a hater of the 390 engine back when it was a 373cc single. That thing was a bit underpowered. This makes like 45 horsepower, something around there. And it's pretty fun. It makes a lot more, or not a lot, but it makes more torque. It's a pretty fun engine. Now in this package, it weighs about 350, 375 full of fuel. It scoots along really nicely considering it's, again, only 45-ish horsepower. So, a lot of fun. I'm very surprised they've come a long way. The chassis. This chassis is the same one shared with the Enduro and the Adventure. This is, as KTM describes it, a more stiffer, torsionally stiffer, so side-to-side stiffness has been increased compared to the 390 Duke Generation 2 from a few years ago. So stiffer bike side to side for just giving it that more planted feel. Doesn't feel like a toy as much anymore. It feels like a proper motorcycle. Clearly, the difference with the Supermoto compared to the Enduro and the Adventure bikes is the 17-inch wheels in front and in back. These have spokes in them because Supermotos need to have spokes, duh, obviously. The crazy thing is, these also have tubes. KTM said the lightest wheels they could have used are the cast wheels from the 390 Duke, but again, Supermotos need to have spokes. So there you go, spoked, tubed wheels with Michelin Pilot 6 tires, a big fat 320 millimeter brake disc, 4-piston bi-brie caliper, stainless steel brake line, and then as you come up, you get the adjustable brake lever and clutch lever. But then look at the suspension. You got rebound damping, you can adjust there, compression you can adjust there. This is the same suspension as the Enduro and the Adventure models, same travel, just with 17-inch tires backwards and forwards. So super fun package. It's about a 34-inch seat height, but they reconfigured the chassis to move the shock offset to the side. The airbox has been reconfigured. Here is the funnel for the airbox that goes into there. That's been reconfigured so the shock is now pushed to the side to make the seat height lower at about 33.5 inches. But once you're sitting on it, the rear shock is pretty soft, so it'll compress. Getting your foot on the ground is pretty easy. You'll see here the shifter, nothing special there except our particular test bikes have the KTM quick shifter up and down installed. That is a factory option for about $274. To me, that's money well spent and it works fantastic. So, in a nutshell, that is the bike. You've got the KTM ride modes, there is a street and a sport, there's ABS Supermoto, traction control, but that's not lean angle sensitive, so it's all just wheel speed based. And yeah, let's get a quick look at the dash. Kind of hard to see, but ready to race. There you go. There it is. So yeah, that's the KTM 390 SMC R in a nutshell. So, what's it like to ride? Come along, let's take it for a spin. KTM 390 SMC R, doing some track sessions. Not recommended for hardcore track duty. All right, let's go have some fun. So I gotta get these tires warmed up. Yeah, the SMC R here is a strange little beast. Well, I shouldn't say it's strange, but the little brother to the 690 SMC R. This is the third iteration of the Duke chassis that is used across the Adventure and the Enduro, and my helmet's not strapped in. So, the 390 SMC, what it is the baby brother to the 690 SMC. What it is not is a challenger for KTM's own 450 SMR. To me, this 390 SMC is quite a pack of motorcycle for your money. It's only $5,500. You get adjustable suspension, at least as far as rebound and compression is concerned. You get a pretty cool supermoto package, because let's face it, supermoto is always the answer. But really, if you could only have one bike to do everything you need, and you're on a budget for $5,500, this is a pretty good option. That is, assuming you don't have any long commutes. So, if you want a street bike that's street legal, that you can have fun with, if you have a short commute to school or work, what have you, then you want to have some fun on the weekends, either in the canyons or at a go-kart track. Just like a little play bike to do a lot of everything. This is a good option. Even in this fully stock configuration with the exhaust stock, everything's stock. I mean, the power delivery is not bad. It's only got like whatever, 44, 50 horsepower or something like that. But like, it's pretty fun. It's pretty enjoyable. For the hardcore track junkies, this will need some work. Suspension's pretty soft, especially the rear. The front's okay. We've almost fully stiffened both ends, actually. But the front leaves some actual room for it to dig into the ground and actually give you some feedback. But these tires, the stock Michelin tires, are not track tires, so I gotta respect the grip levels here. But overall, it's a fun little bike. I'm really impressed with this quick shifter. It works really nicely in both directions. And I mean, KTM knows how to make a good chassis. And this is for such a inexpensive motorcycle, this chassis works. Fun little bike. This is a fun little bike. So, what are my initial impressions of the KTM 390 SMC R? Pretty good, I would say. This is a pretty fun, inexpensive, I hate to use the word plaything, but it is. Like, it's fun, it's agile, the power is not too much, it's just right. You know, if you're a high horsepower junkie, this is definitely not the motorcycle for you. But it works. Like, it's a lot of fun in a very small, very inexpensive package, $5,500. That's a pretty good bang for the buck proposition right there. And since we're stopped for a second, let's just take a second to appreciate this little dashboard here. It's a teeny tiny 4-inch TFT display, but if you heard those three special letters, TFT, like, this is a 390 with a TFT display. Yeah, it's small, but like, it kind of fits the whole ethos of this little dirt bike frame, right? For the most part, I think I have the information I really want. I have my tachometer there, I have my gear indicator there, and my speed right there. For most of my riding, what else are you going to want? I'm sure there's a low fuel light that'll come on eventually. You can actually change the look of this display so it shows you only the speed you're going and the gear you're in. Since I'm riding the bike right now, I'm not going to change the screen while I'm riding the bike around. Plus, I like to know where the engine is RPM wise, so I prefer to have the tach still there looking at me. But I'm really impressed with this SMC R. These bars, in typical, you know, dirt bike supermoto style, these bars are nice and wide. I get good leverage from them. It's a little weird if I'm like cranking the bike over, hustling it in the corners, especially at the track which we were just at, as far as like hand placement and like elbow placement, but like, it's not really a big deal. Let's see, what else? Adjustable levers for both the clutch and the brake, so that's very nice for riders of all different kinds of hand sizes. And yeah, it's a very easy package to get accustomed to, especially if you're a newer rider. Sorry, I had to back it in a little bit there. Looking for, like, the person I picture riding this bike would be like a student or a younger person commuting to work or to school. Or if you live out where you don't really need to go on the highway, this is great. Yeah, the bike can do highway speeds. It can certainly do highway speeds, but as you saw, the red line comes at you pretty quickly, and by the time you're topping out at 90, 95 miles an hour or whatever, yeah, this engine's kind of asking you not to be revving so high. But for most non-highway riding, it's a cool little package. The brakes are adequate. You do get a stainless steel line, as you can see right there. So that's cool. You know, they're adequate. They do the job. Lever feel is about commensurate with the package we've got here. And they stop very well. Almost 34-inch seat height. It sounds tall, but
The seat is super narrow, and as you can see from these riders in front of me, like the knee bend, I think Matt in front of me there is about 5'10", maybe somewhere almost 6 foot. So yeah, reaching the ground isn't a problem for him. But Dustin there, next bike up, he's about my height, 5'8". Touching the ground isn't really an issue for any of us. The spring is pretty soft in the rear, so once you sit on it, it'll compress a decent bit. And getting a foot on the ground isn't so bad. So that narrowness of the seat plus the softness of the shock makes it easy to touch the ground.
Okay, we are back from a little bit of street riding and a little bit of track riding on the 2025 KTM 390 SMC R. You know what? I'm pretty impressed with this thing. It's a lot of fun for not a lot of money. So here's a quick recap of the entire bike in case it was not really easily digestible before. The engine, not major changes with the engine. It's a 400cc single, like you know about with the 390 Duke. If you want to get picky, it's like 398.6 cc's, but who's counting? We've got about 45 horsepower. Not a lot either, but it's a lot of fun in a little package. And then the big changes would be on the chassis side of things. Compared to the previous generation of the Duke chassis, they call this the Duke chassis, even though this is not a 390 Duke, obviously. Shared amongst the Enduro, the Adventure, and now the SMC. It's more rigid than the previous generation chassis. The headstock is actually roughly the same stiffness as before, but the torsional rigidity pretty much behind the headstock has been ramped up for a more solid, more bigger bike feel compared to the toy-like feel of the previous generation Duke. The steering angle is different, just a little bit to get more aggressive for supermoto duties. Obviously there's 17-inch wheels because supermoto, duh. Those have tubes in it, kind of a controversial choice, but because of the spoked wheels, the tubes were kind of a necessity. Really cool to have adjustable suspension. You have compression and rebound, but not preload adjustment on the fork. Same suspension as the Enduro and the Adventure, 230 millimeter of travel at both ends. So it's same travel as the Enduro and the Adventure, just the wheels themselves are different. So you get a lot of that pitching back and forth, which if you take advantage of, it's actually a lot of fun to use all of that travel back and forth to get a better feel for what the tires are doing. The seat is about 33 and a half inches off the ground, but this is a pretty narrow space right here, so it's not too hard to touch the ground. I'm 5'8", 30-inch inseam, and I can get the balls of my feet on the ground no problem. I really enjoy that there's adjustable levers both for the brake and the clutch. The brake feel itself, wholly adequate and decent for the job because you don't want too strong of a brakes in a package like this, otherwise you'll just flip over the front. There's adequate braking power, which might sound like a negative, but in this application is just the right amount of braking power for the package you're getting here. It's a light-ish bike. 350 pounds, 370 pounds, somewhere in that ballpark. So the brake combination for the power, for the weight, for the chassis, it all melds into one cohesive package. So yeah, a lot of fun. And like I said before, if you don't have a really long commute or you're looking for just a play bike as a secondary bike, for example, as long as you're not heading on the highway, this is, like I said before a million times at this point, there's a lot of bang for your buck with this SMC R. The power's right where you want it to be. The quick shifter on this, which is an optional accessory, but I think you should get it if it's not a lot of money. Yeah, it just comes together. It's a lot of fun. If I were a college student looking for really cool transportation to and from school, or a 20-something, like, getting to work and whatnot, and I didn't have to commute very far or didn't have to go on highways, or there's just a really cool back road to get to wherever you need to go, this is a good package. You got a pretty clear TFT screen here. We did ride under direct sunlight, and bits of it were a little bit harder to see, but I could still make out the portions that I needed to make out. Navigating through the menus isn't hard at all. The joystick here has clear detents, so you know when you're pressing it up, down, or side to side. The screen is small but easy to read. You can filter through all the different menus pretty easily. There is traction control. There's either street mode, sport mode of TC, or you can turn it off entirely. Like I said, there's front ABS that you cannot defeat, and then there's supermoto ABS, which turns off the rear ABS. But yeah, all in all, super fun bike, a lot of bang for the buck, and a real good time. So that's the quick and dirty of the 2025 KTM 390 SMC R. Be sure to go to Motorcycle.com, read my full written review there. I'll get into more details, be able to better explain the thoughts going through my head right now, and give a better overall picture of what the SMC R brings to the table. But yeah, if this is calling your name, I think it's worth a try at your local dealership because it's a ton of fun. All right, gang, go to Mo, catch my review there, ride safe, and as always, see you at the next one.